Hello.
Hi.
Did you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you for fixing your camera. You can see me?
Yes.
And you can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. We have finished Spacemice. So today we're going to write the summary of the story. So I have, you can see right here is the book. Can you see that okay? It's hard to see it there. There's the book. Now, do you also have your iPad with you?
Mom, iPad.
Okay. Because I will need your help, your detective work, when we are working on filling out the story map. Especially if we want to remember something that happened or the name of a character. Okay, so I have my iPad here ready and I have the story map ready to go. So let me go ahead and share a screen with you. Now, the last time we did this, every once in a while, the camera would freeze or something would freeze and then you couldn't see what I was doing. So you need to tell me, okay? Deal?
Yeah.
All right. So we can see on our story map that we will start with our characters, okay, who is in the story, and then our setting, that's where does it happen. And because this is science fiction, we want to make sure we say when this happens, right, which is in the future. And then we will switch to green, and we will talk about what is the problem at the beginning of the story. And then we will switch to purple, and we will list the events, the things that happen in the story that need to happen in order to solve the problem. And then at the end, we will have our solution, okay, that tells us how the problem is all fixed. So let's start with the characters. Do you want to help me with who the main characters are in the story?
Buzzy Wugsy.
Yes. Who's more important than Bugsy Wugsy?
Geronimo.
Yes, and we call him Stiltonix. Okay. And who else?
Trap Stiltonic.
Trap, his cousin. Yes. Anyone else?
Thea.
Thea, his sister. Okay. What's that professor's name?
Professor Greenfur.
Professor Greenfur.
Yes.
And you were right that we have Benjamin and Bugsy Wugsy. And we have grandfather. What's the name of the mechanic?
Robogus.
Is that Sally? Oh, robotics. Yeah, we need robotics. Who is the bad guy in the story?
The Great Blob.
The Great Blob. I'm going to give him a capital G and a capital B. Okay, where does this story take place?
In the space.
Outer space.
On the planet Ratos.
Right, they're going to go to the planet Ratos. And what's the name of the spaceship?
Mouse Star 1.
Mouse Star 1. Do you see that? Do I want a capital S or not a capital S?
A capital S.
Okay, capital S and then the number 1. Okay. And when does this happen? Does this happen in the past, present, or future?
Has.
Well, the story has already happened for us because we read it. But when can someone go out into space and have and go visit people on other planets? Do you think that already happened on Earth, or do you think that might happen in the future? We don't know because we need to use our imagination.
In the future.
Yes, so we're going to say in the future because this story is a science fiction story, which means it happens in the future and they use technology that we have not even invented yet. It is just in the author's imagination. Okay, problem. What is the problem that they're trying to solve in the story? What is the mission they are going on? Do you remember what the problem with the Space Star 1?
Oh, I know.
I'm going to take a look at it here. You do? What is it?
I forgot.
Yeah, because it's a long time ago. We've been reading this for a while. I think grandfather came to him and said in the control room and told him about a problem.
The tetrastellium problem.
Tetrastellium problem, right? So here he's not there yet. So let's see. Here comes his grandfather, right? And his grandfather tells him about this problem. So what does he say? Oh, here we go. He says the Mouse Star 1 is about to explode. And then we needed more information. So what did he say? Oh, I remember here, grandfather said to him, do you know how the engine of the ship works? And Geronimo says, yes. He says it needs tetrastellar batteries. And then the grandfather says, what happens when the stellar energy batteries overheat? And Geronimo says, the engine explodes. Okay, so then we find out, grandfather says that he found a solution. He said we need new batteries to stabilize the engine, but tetrastellium is what powers the batteries, and that's a very rare element. It only exists on a few planets. All right, let's see. Okay, and then the grandfather says that he's already found a planet 3.7 light years away that may have tetrastellium, the planet Ratos, and they're going there immediately. Okay, so now we know that the problem is that the engine of the Mouse Star 1 might explode because they need more tetrastellium for powering the batteries. So they need to go to another planet to get more tetrastellium, this element that they will use right here. They need to get tetrastellium to power the batteries. Okay, that's the solution for their problem. All right, so we just figured out that the problem is that the batteries or the engine of the spaceship might explode if the engine of the spaceship might explode because it needs more tetrastellium to power its batteries. The engine of the spaceship might explode because it needs, more tetrastellium to power its batteries, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and they think they can get more tetrastellium on the distant planet Ratos, right? So they think they can get more tetrastellium on the distant, that means far away, planet Ratos, comma, but they don't know that. What should we say about what is on the planet Ratos? They don't know what trouble they might find there. How about that? They don't know what trouble they might find there. And then I'm going to put an exclamation mark, okay? So let's look at our problem. The engine of the spaceship might explode because it needs more tetrastellium to power its batteries. They think they can get more tetrastellium on the distant planet Ratos, but they don't know what trouble they might find there. You and I know what trouble because we have finished the story. All right, we're going to switch to purple, and we're going to start talking about what they do to solve this problem. So number one, what's the first thing that happens? They set their course. They start flying toward planet Ratos, right? So Captain Stiltonix, because he's the captain of the ship. So Captain Stiltonix starts flying the Mouse Star 1 toward planet Ratos. Okay, maybe I'll say toward the planet and not have that be capital. Toward the planet Ratos. All right, number two. It seems to me they get there by lunchtime, don't they?
Yeah.
They leave in the morning and somehow they are already there by lunchtime. So,
Yeah.
so at lunchtime, I think he's having lunch with his cousin Trap, and he gets a message to come to the control room, and they find out, what do they find out? That
What did they find out?
I think they find out that that those three creatures from Ratos are coming on board with a gift of tetrastellium for them. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think I'll just say a few hours later. They arrive at Ratos, comma, and 3 pink, I think they call them mouseoids, 3 pink mouseoids from Ratos boarded their ship. That means they came on board. Oops, boarded their ship. Carrying a, what was it? It was like a box or a chest or a trunk or a container. Carrying a box of pink tetrastellium. Let's see. A few, oops, I've frozen here. This happens a lot when I try to do this system. Now we're back in action. I needed to stop that and start that again because the camera got frozen. So let's read this second event. A few hours later, they arrive at Ratos, and 3 pink mouseoids from Ratos. You know, I'm writing this in present tense, so maybe I need to say board. Keep my verbs the same, right? Because I have starts and arrive. So let's say board. Board their ship carrying a box of tetrastellium. All right, number 3. These mouseoids do not want any payment for the tetrastellium, and Thea finds this suspicious. These mouseoids do not want any payment for the tetrastellium, and Thea finds this suspicious. The mouseoids only ask that the mouse star 1 stays there for 1 night. Okay, now comes the exciting part. So that night, the pink tetrastellium turns into the giant, the great blob, right? That night, the pink tetrastellium turns into the great blob and takes over the ship. Right? And then we can use that word meanwhile, right? They use that a lot in story, like something is happening at the same time, but in a different place. So we can say, meanwhile, on planet Ratos, you know, it's kind of hard. I think if we try to explain that the great blob is both on the ship and on the planet, and that Benjamin and Bugsy Wugsy are in one place and Trap, Thea, and Geronimo are in a different place, I think our story would start to get really long, our summary. So I think the important part here is that we know the great blob is bad. He wants to take over the ship and then take over the universe. And it's also important for us to say that Trap tricks him, right? Would you say that's the important part?
Yes.
So I'm thinking maybe instead of explaining about what's happening in two places at the same time, maybe we could say the pink tetrastellium turns into the great blob and takes over the ship. We could say they learn he wants to take over the universe, right? So they learn he wants to take over the universe, wants to take over. We could even use the word conquer. We had that word in the story. The universe. And that's kind of a big deal. So I'm going to put an exclamation mark at the end of that. Okay, so number 5. Now it's time for Trap to do his trick, right? He's sneaky and tricky. So Trap tricks the great blob by challenging him to, he's a shapeshifter, right? So to shift his shape, or we could say maybe to transform. That's another word they used. Into small pieces of candy, right? Okay, into maybe super small pieces of candy, which they trap in a box.
It is frozen.
Oh, thank you. It's a good thing you told me that. What would I do without you? You're like my assistant. So let's see. Trap tricks the great blob by challenging him to shift his shape or transform into super small pieces of candy, which they trap in a box. In a small candy box. I think it's funny that Trap is the name, and what he does is he traps the great blob. Funny.
Yes, but if the great blob is inside the candy box, the great blob can eat the candy.
That's so funny. You're right.
You can eat it all.
So we're ready for the solution. We have to remember that the problem is the spaceship might explode because it needs more tetrastellium. Of course, it turns out that the pink tetrastellium was not what they needed. That was really the great blob, but they still need more tetrastellium. So, do you remember how they find it?
In the red holes.
Yeah, it was there, right? Didn't they find it at like the bottom of a crack or something?
Yes.
Say before they left Ratos, they found, we could say Stiltonics. We haven't really mentioned the names of our characters. We could say Stiltonics, Thea, Trap, and Professor Greenfur.
But they are all Stiltonics. They are all Stiltonics. They are Thea Stiltonics, Trap Stiltonics.
Oh, you're right. You're right. So should I say Captain or should I just say Geronimo?
Geronimo.
Okay.
Or Captain.
Thank you for reminding me of that, Geronimo. Or was it just Professor Greenfur that found it? Should we say they all found it or just Professor Greenfur?
They all found it.
Okay. Before they left Ratos, Geronimo, Thea, Trap, and Professor Greenfur found some real tetrastellium, right?
That's 99%. It's 100%.
Right, some real, so tetrastellium.
Mine, that is all.
That was 100%. Okay. So they found some real tetrastellium. Maybe I don't want to put a period here. That let them save their ship. And then maybe we can say, sometimes we say, mission accomplished. That's not really a sentence, but we like to say it in English. Mission accomplished. They were successful. So before they left Ratos, Geronimo, Thea, Trap, and Professor Greenfur, I think I need to make this, where did I put mine? I think I need to make this find. I keep changing my verb. The hard thing when we're writing a lot of sentences is that when we're using verbs, we either want them to all be the present tense, like right now, or we want them to all be past tense. So they find some real tetrastellium that lets them save their ship. Mission accomplished. Okay, so we're just going to read it through from the beginning. We're about finished. You ready?
Yes.
All right, I'll change to, this will be my pointer. Okay. The engine, so remember, when this is like my rough draft, which means this is the first time that I'm doing the writing. But when I am fixing it and making it better, I might want to add some things. So here for the problem, I'm going to say, in the beginning, comma, and then this needs to be a little t. Okay. In the beginning, the engine of the spaceship, I probably need to introduce what spaceship I'm talking about, but we'll do that in a minute. In the beginning, the engine of the spaceship might explode because it needs more of the element. We need to introduce that is an element. We haven't told anybody that. Of course, it's a made up element just for this story. Oh, it froze. It froze. We decided that we need to introduce tetrastellium as being an element. Remember, we looked at the elements on the periodic table, and tetrastellium is not on there because it does not exist on Earth, because it's not real, right? The author came up with that idea in his imagination. So, but their spaceship needs the tetrastellium to power its batteries. They think they can get more tetrastellium on the distant planet Ratos, but they don't know what trouble they might find there.
But we know.
So here I'm going to say, that's right, we know. First, Captain Stiltonix, that's Geronimo, starts flying the Mouth Star 1 toward the planet Ratos. A few hours later, they arrive at Ratos, and 3 pink mouseoids, we thought this was like androids, from Ratos board their ship carrying a box of pink tetrastellium. Something we didn't mention was that Professor Greenfur, he was pretty suspicious of that. Remember, he said, I've never heard of pink tetrastellium, but they scanned it and the computer said it was 99% pure, right? These mouseoids do not want any payment for the tetrastellium. And Thea finds this suspicious. She does not trust that. The mouseoids only ask that the mouse star 1 stays there for one night. That night, the pink tetrastellium turns into the great blob and takes over the ship. They learn he wants to take over, or we could use the word conquer, the universe. Trap tricks the great blob by challenging him to shift his shape, because he is a shape shifter, or we could say transform, into super small pieces of candy, which they trap in a small candy box. In the end, or we could say before they left Ratos, Geronimo, Thea, Trap, and Professor Greenfur find some real tetrastellium that lets them save their ship. Mission accomplished. Okay, the only thing we need to do for our summary, this is a good summary, it shows the beginning, the middle, and the end. But before we list the problem, we need a sentence that introduces the name of the story and something either with the characters or the setting. So that when we say here, the spaceship, we know what our reader knows what we're talking about. And when we say they, and they, and they, we need to explain who they are, right? They are people up here in the character box, but we have not introduced them yet in a sentence. So let me see. Usually I use red to do this, but I want to use something that's easier to see. So maybe I will use black. Okay, and I did not leave myself very much room. You know, maybe I'm gonna just actually do it right here. I'll pull a little piece of paper out. Okay, the name of this story, do you have your iPad right there?
Yes.
What is the name of this story?
Spacemice.
Spacemice, but doesn't it have another name next to it? Because remember, there are 12 different Spacemice stories. Is this Alien Escape?
Yes.
Okay. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. In the story, Spacemice Alien Escape.
Yes.
I'm going to do it like this.
Is it? Escape.
Okay, in the story, Spacemice Alien Escape, Captain, I'm just going to introduce some characters and the name of the spaceship, okay?
Oh, you said a cook squeezy.
Say that again?
You said you need to write the cook squeezy.
I don't think that's an important character, so I'm not going to put him into my character box, okay?
Okay.
He is a character, but I'm not, I also did not list hologramics, okay? All right, so Captain Geronimo Stiltonics. In the story, Captain Geronimo Stiltonics.
Yes, it is.
Is, let me see, it's kind of hard to include very many of these. Captain Geronimo Stiltonics, and his crew are flying their spaceship.
To the Ratos.
Well, that's in the green box. I'm just going to introduce the name of the spaceship, the Mouse Star 1. Maybe we'll just put a period here. In the story, Spacemice alien escape. Captain Geronimo Stilton and his crew are flying their spaceship, the Mouse Star 1. And then we could say the story begins with Geronimo learning that the engine of spaceship might explode because it needs more. So how about that? In the story, Spacemice alien escape, Captain Geronimo Stilton and his crew are flying their spaceship, the Mouse Star 1. The story begins with Geronimo learning that the engine of the spaceship might explode because it needs more of the element tetrastellium to power its batteries. They think they can get more, how about of this element, on the distant planet Ratos, but they don't know what trouble they might find there. First, Captain Stilton starts flying the Mouse Star 1 toward the planet Ratos. A few hours later, they arrive at Ratos, and 3 pink mouseoids from Ratos board their ship carrying a box of pink tetrastellium. These mouseoids do not want any payment for the tetrastellium, and Thea finds this suspicious. The mouseoids only ask that the Mouse Star 1 stays there for one night. That night, the pink tetrastellium turns into the great blob and takes over the ship. I think that needs an exclamation mark. They learn he wants to take over or conquer the whole universe. Trap tricks the great blob by challenging him to shift his shape or transform into super small pieces of candy, which they then trap in a small candy box. Before they leave Ratos, Geronimo, Thea, Trap, and Professor Greenfur find some real tetrastellium that lets them save their ship. Mission accomplished. I think one thing I might want to do is come up with a transition word to put right here. Something like, well, I'm not sure. I'd have to think about that. But otherwise, I think that we did a nice job writing our summary. It takes a lot of thinking. And you see my story map here looks a little messy. And that's because writing takes so much thinking. We put down our ideas, but then we might change them. Every time we read it over again, we might say, oh, I don't like that, or maybe I want to change this, or we do a lot of changes, cross things out, make it better. Find mistakes, fix it. We might change our writing many times before we are all done and happy with it. And then, of course, we would write it one final time to make it perfect. But I'm not going to do that here. Instead, I'm going to stop share. And I'm going to say,
so long, Goodbye.
Bye, Archie.